Hello, everybody. Hello again. I'm just behind the 8 ball today. But you're here with me, and thank you for joining me on poll results or poll review. This is another episode where we go over the polls that I've been putting out. I put out a poll every day on my YouTube channel. I get people voting on the different options. We look at them here on this live stream, and we derive conclusions from this, okay? And we think about the implications. Usually, I put out polls because I feel that people don't consider these questions enough, okay? My YouTube channel is about careers, how to get a job, how to succeed in entrepreneurship and other things like this, other career paths. And I've put out polls that trigger questions that I think a lot of people don't spend enough time considering. So we're going to get right into it today. Thank you for joining me. If you do have any questions, there is a chat, and I will try and get to your questions also, and just throw that whole thing into the mix. And I have, it's kind of very clunky and clumsy, but I have another camera here, this one, right? So just to get a little bit of variety. And like I was saying on my previous stream, which was like 5 minutes ago, you got a beautiful view of the garbage can. So now you can die happy having seen that. Okay, so let's see if I can get this working here. Let's go over to the polls, and we're going to do this in reverse chronological order. Okay, so a week ago I put out this. It says, people treat me differently based on my clothing and grooming. True or false? And overwhelmingly, people say this is true, and they are absolutely correct. It is a thing. If you dress differently, you get treated differently because, people who don't know you are making a judgment about you based on what they know of you, which usually the first thing is how you look. And that is based also on your attire, how you dress, and your grooming, okay? If you have a giant offensive face tattoo, people are going to make certain assumptions about you. If you don't, people are going to make different assumptions about you. That's just how it goes. And many, many years ago, when I was a much younger man, I actually did a sort of social experiment for myself, where I one day would dress up like this, kind of business casual or business formal, and then go to a doctor's office or a restaurant or something. And then I'd observe how I was treated. And then I would intentionally dress up really shabbily. I'd wear sweatpants, and I wouldn't shave for a few days, and things like this. And I would go out to those same places or to similar places and observe how I was treated. And sure enough, it was night and day. And that taught me something very, very profound. It's unfortunate that the world works like this, but unfortunately it does. So that's just how it goes. Okay, we are going to move on with the next poll here, if I could get this thing working. Okay, so 6 days ago, I put this out. How to get a job with no experience. And here were the options. Okay, A, unpaid internships and volunteering. B, networking, or one form of networking, which was informational interviews with industry professionals. C, another form of networking, which is applying in person. Yes, this is actually a form of networking because you are usually interacting with some type of human there. Either it's a receptionist, or it could be a manager, or it could be some other employee. It is a networking interaction, okay? So it is actually under the whole umbrella of networking. Applying in person. Option D, another form of networking, broadcasting your value proposition. I don't say how, but, what I would assume if I read that was that it was more like over social media, that kind of thing. Or all of the above and more besides. And most people, 64% of you guys said all of the above, and you're absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. These are all known ways to get a job if you have no work experience, okay? So if that's you, I know that's a popular question that people ask on the internet. How do I get a job with no experience? Here are some options. I would, if I were you, and you're wanting to know an answer to this, I would do your research on some of these methods, how to do them, okay? And we got a lot of comments and things on that too, so that's great. Okay, moving on. This is the next question. It says, the best answer to tell me something about yourself that's not on your resume is, and then here's the options. 1, talk about your passion for the job. 2, talk about your hobbies and interests. I've had people, I know people recommend these various things. I've seen that before. 3, explain how you want to improve their bottom line. 4, talk about your personality. Or 5, you could say, certainly, what would you like to know? If you've watched my channel, you might know that I've done a video or a couple of videos where I recommend this, number 5. Okay, they say, tell me something about yourself that's not on your resume. And you say, certainly, what would you like to know? See, the problem is, it kind of sums up a problem. It sums up a problem with the way recruitment and selection is done, with a lot of organizations, and that they make you go through this very ritualistic process of job interviews where they ask you these cryptic questions, that are just really annoying. And it's really a word dance. It's the exact opposite to how you really do recruitment and selection properly, which is getting to know the people, okay? That's how you really do it. That's how they hire executives. That's how they hire people a lot of times in startups, for one simple reason. It's very effective, okay? What we usually have in corporate recruitment and selection is very ineffective. We have data on this. Management scientists have data just how ineffective it really is. The problem, of course, is that the only alternative to it that works is very, very labor intensive. That's like getting to know people properly. Very labor intensive. In fact, it is prohibitively labor intensive, and that's the reason that they just don't do it. Okay? So coming back to this question, they ask you things like this. They say, tell me something about yourself. Here it is. Tell me something about yourself that's not on your resume. That's code. That's code. They're asking you about something specific, but they're not going to tell you what it is. They want you to signal to them that you believe it's important by you bringing it up as an answer to an open-ended question, right? The problem is most people don't succeed at these guessing games. These types of rituals tend to reward people that have a lot of skills in doing an interview, but not necessarily any skills in doing a job, right? Or doing the job that they're hiring for. So to avoid this, if you are the type of person that is skilled, but you either are not, an extreme extrovert with very high emotional intelligence, you're just a typical person, you will tend not to do very well at these type of questions unless you've really prepared for them and learned how recruiters have decided that they should be answered. So for that reason, never guess as to what they're wanting to know. Ask them directly, okay? And you will actually do better. Okay, so that's why I say the answer is certainly. What would you like to know? I'm happy to tell you what you're wanting to know, but I'm not going to guess as to what that is. Everything relevant about your past, that's not something that's immediately demonstrable by communicating with you, is on your resume. So when they say, tell me something about you're not on your resume, it's like saying, tell me something totally unimportant about you. I mean, how do you get that question right and how do you get it wrong? It's silly. You shouldn't play these kinds of games. You shouldn't engage with people that are trying to play these games. Look, if you have an intelligent, clear question for me, let's just get to that. So you want to get them to do that without pissing them off or, breaking protocol. And this line is how to do that. So hopefully that makes sense. Next question. This came out 4 days ago. The question was, most jobs are filled by, and then you had 2 options, public job postings or networking. And the vast majority of you, or 81% of you, said networking. You're absolutely correct. Most jobs are filled by networking. The problem is that most people who give advice on how to get a job tend to be recruiters. And recruiters have a conflict of interest when they tell people, don't go through recruiters. Use networking to go around recruiters to the people who make the hiring decisions, namely the hiring managers, and talk to them instead, right? So there you go. So a lot of you guys that watch my channel, you're aware of this. And I got quite a few comments from people that, once again, you get the rookie reaction where people hear this and their immediate reaction is disbelief. They go, oh my God, that can't be true because nobody's told me that. Whenever people talk in school about how to get a job, it's always responding to a job ad, right? So this concept of you don't have to go through answering job ads to get a job, that can't be right. And I'm naturally vehemently against it. What you realize when you've been out in the real world is that networking can take many, many forms. And most jobs are filled by some form of networking. And if you want some kind of immediate evidence of that, look at higher level jobs as you climb the organizational chart to get higher and higher jobs. They use networking more and more and more. When you get to the executive level, that's pretty much 100% of how those jobs are filled. It's very rare that, you're advertising a CEO job or something, or, some C-level job, and you put out a job posting and then you get in 100,000 applications, whatever you get these days. And, you pick out some stranger and say, okay, we're going to go with you. Right? Usually it doesn't work that way. Usually to have charge of something that big, you really have to be trustworthy, and it's very, very hard to trust a stranger. If you're going to put your nest egg in the hands of some person, you would want to make sure before you choose a person you don't know, that at the very least, all the people around you that you trust, they all personally recommend that person. It would take something like that for you to really feel that you can do this kind of thing. So it's reasons like that, okay? Anyway, don't take my word for this if you disagree with this or this is surprising. Go out, do your own independent research. You will see it's true. Okay, moving on. Next poll question. Okay, this has the biggest positive impact on one's career. So here are several types of skills. Public speaking skills, networking skills, management and leadership skills, technical skills, collaboration skills. Okay, the winner on the poll was networking skills. I would agree with this. If you had to pick one, I think that would be it. The other ones are obviously important. Technical skills are very important for worker level jobs. Also, supervisor level jobs, it's very important that you have a good technical base in whatever it is that you're doing. But beyond that, they become less and less important. And it can be a double-edged sword, because I don't know if you guys have ever had, like a boss, that you're the worker and they're the manager, and they used to be in your position many years ago. They started off as a worker and you're, doing that role now, and they've risen up, right? And they feel that they know everything about what you do. Okay, now sometimes that's true. A lot of other times it isn't, because when they were doing the job, it was a different time. There were different tools that people used back then. It was a different business environment. It was a different world. So it can be a double-edged sword. The manager thinks they know everything about how you do your job, but they don't. They know how they did that job 20 years ago. Now the job has evolved since then. And so they still think they're a technical authority that's superior to you, but you actually know more than they do about the job now. So, technical skills, it's a solid foundation, but it's other things that build on top of that, especially if you're being a manager. And so other things become important. Okay, so for your career, if your career is to move upwards. And like leadership skills, that's basically influencing. Okay, so management is several things, one of which is influencing. Technical skills are important. Collaboration skills, important, especially if you work in an organizational culture where they care about everybody getting along, like a large organization. Okay, that's very important. Public speaking skills, this is pretty important actually. If you can get up and do a presentation, you can get up and do a pitch for something, you can get up in front of just an informal sort of crowd of people and persuade them and influence them, and they're coming with you on something. That's a very, very important skill to have. Okay. Networking is the thing that, you do for directly getting a job higher up. Okay. As we've established 5 minutes ago on a previous question. But all these other things are important too. So I would pick networking skills, but these are also really the workhorse that make you a contender for being in a higher position. Okay, let's put it that way. Great participation, by the way. We had some of these polls that were filled out by 7,000, 8,000 votes, something like that. So that's really nice to see. Okay, here's the fun one for the week. After this, I will take a question from Aeneas, if I'm saying that right. But here's the fun one. It says, the most satisfying activity immediately before quitting a job is 1, assaulting the boss's desk. I don't know exactly how you do that, but you could get creative. 2, slapping his bald head for good luck. I'm just assuming that it's a guy, and I'm assuming that he's bald. I don't know if I should be making those assumptions, but hey, this is about humor. Finger painting your resignation letter. I've never seen that. I've never received a resignation letter that's finger painted, but I think that would be either funny or alarming, depending on your point of view. And number 4, making your presence felt among your coworkers. I had a couple of people asking in the comments, like, what does that actually mean? I don't know. That just means like making sure that they are aware that you're around. That's all it means. Now, I don't know what you're doing to make it pretty obvious that you're around, but you could be raising your voice. You could be engaging in antics of various kinds. I'm not sure. But anyway, so those are the options. You guys chose making your presence felt among your coworkers. I wouldn't have chose that one. I would have thought that, maybe it'd be more your boss that you would have a problem with, not your coworkers. That's just how I was thinking. I don't know. So the first 3 were kind of directed at your boss. So I would have chosen any one of them, but hey, it's not about me. The mob has spoken, and it's number 4. So there you go. Let's take a quick question here. Oh, it doesn't show up. It doesn't show up in the little doodad there. But I can see in the chat, there's Aeneas says, the most effective method of networking. That is going to depend. Okay. There are many, many methods of networking. If you are, for example, an introvert in certain industries, okay, I would recommend, like if you're just starting out doing this, I would recommend stuff you can do on social networking, okay, with your phone or your computer, okay? On the other hand, if you are an extrovert, if you can go up and you've got a lot of personal skills, good communication skills, good interpersonal skills, you're a very likable person, if you enjoy doing one-on-one face-to-face interactions with people, then I would recommend things like networking events, mixers, that kind of stuff. I do think one of the most powerful and useful things are informational interviews, and anyone can do those. I know a lot of introverts, like myself, that can be very good at those because they're really not hard to do. They're really not hard at all. And one of these years, I should do a video on how to do a great informational interview. I think maybe some people are interested in that. But there's a lot of things in there, from broadcasting yourself, like from, it's something as simple as you doing a post in a business group, on LinkedIn or some other business website, a place where people congregate, okay? There's a lot of industry-specific stuff out there, or there's just LinkedIn, which is just basically the Facebook of business. And, it involves that. It involves that all the way to one-on-one personal interactions. You can have all kinds of intermediate stuff where you do phone networking and stuff. I'm not a big fan of phone networking. I'm certainly not a fan of cold calling. I mean, if you're like an ex-sales type person, maybe that's for you. And some people are really into that, both doing it and having it done to them. But there's a lot of other intermediate things that you can do. The biggest thing I think for most people would be just being able to go up and have a conversation with somebody. You arrange the conversation and then you go up and you have it. That's the most effective thing. It's great for introverts, and a lot of extroverts can do that too to great effect. So in a nutshell, that's what I would say. Aeneas says, I read this somewhere and it said the best time to quit your job is when you don't want to leave and they don't want you to leave. Your thoughts? Well, if you don't want to leave and they don't want you to leave, why the hell are you quitting your job? It would be my first question. The best time to quit your job is when you feel you need to quit your job. That's what I would say, okay? I don't like to play these kind of psychological games. And with these kind of things, it's very hard to generalize. You have to examine every specific situation as its own thing, okay? You can't just say, experts say that I should do it here. No, you take into account all the details and idiosyncrasies of your particular situation. You decide what's best for you, okay? That's how you should always do it, in my opinion. If you're in a toxic place, if your mental health is on the line, don't stay for some cerebral reason, The best way to do it is to get something lined up first, put your frustration and your dissatisfaction, channel it into creating a better opportunity for yourself somewhere else, like getting a job offer from a different company or whatever other career option that you're going for. And then when that's all lined up, okay, or at least you have, like, maybe if you don't quite get that far, but maybe you have job interviews lined up with several other employers, so it gives you some optimism that, okay, I'm sure something is going to work out. I'm at least getting interviews, so hopefully there's a bite right around the corner. At least, sort of get that. And then when you quit, like if you feel you can't stand being in your current situation anymore, then when you quit, you're not quitting and then, you have nothing, right? You're jumping to something better. Okay. It feels like a step up rather than a defeat or a step down. That's what I would say. Depend says, can you also do a video on behavioral interview for software engineers? No, I don't do videos for like individual jobs because that's silly. I mean, first of all, look, maybe it's not silly. Maybe that's a bit strong, but it's like, look, what software engineers really aren't that different from other types of jobs. Okay. Everybody always thinks they're unique. You're not. Your industry is not unique. Those traits are found in other industries, I assure you. And I've worked seriously across 5 industries. Okay. Everybody always thinks that this only happens here and this is only something we're dealing with. No, it's not. I can assure you of that. Okay. Now, if it's something like, if you want me to do a video on behavioral interviews for introverts that don't know how to interview and devalue the entire concept of doing a job interview, okay, AKA software engineers, then I could do that. Okay. Something I've noticed with a lot of software engineers is that they tend to be completely ignorant of non-technical issues. Okay. Now I know where you're coming from. Okay. I have a degree in electrical engineering from a past life, and I was a technical guy myself. I had technical jobs at the beginning of my career. And I had placed absolutely no value on all this touchy-feely, let's talk to each other type stuff. When I would go to a job interview when I was, a young man, and someone would ask me, so what does success look like to you? I'd get upset. It's like, I'd find that question insulting. It's like, look, I'm here to interview for this specific technical position. Okay. If you want to know anything about my credentials or my experience, if you want to ask me a skill testing question about the subject matter, hey, let's get into it. I can show you, you know. But no, they would ask you questions like, what does success look like to you? You know, and things like things you never considered because you don't place any importance on them, right? You know, so I've been there, and I see a lot of people that are developers, like IT type people that are getting a job now. They have the same attitude that I had like decades ago. You know, the reality is they ask you these questions for a reason. Sometimes these people are just stupid. Sometimes they are asking about something that's more important than you think. Okay? Because, for example, it doesn't matter how brilliant you are technically, if you have no desire to do that type of work or work with those people in that way, if you're going to get upset, if you're going to resent it, you're going to find it tedious and annoying all the time, you know, and then you're eventually going to want to leave because you can't take it anymore, you're probably not the best person they should hire, right? That's what they're going for. That's what they're asking these questions for. Anyway. Okay. You're absolutely welcome, Aeneas. And thank you for participating. I'm going to get to the last question. I got one more question to go through, one more poll question. Okay, and here's the one from yesterday. It says, when a recruiter says the job is on hold, this means, number one, the job is actually on hold, or number two, you've been eliminated, and I don't want to be honest with you. I don't want to give you the bad news in person. As you can see, 90% of you said, number two, you've been eliminated, and I don't want to be honest with you. Now, is this a thing? Yes, it is. Sometimes jobs are actually on hold, okay? It's a coincidence. It's also a sign of a company that doesn't know what they're doing. The right hand and the left hand are doing different things, and they're working against each other, okay? Excuse me. Wouldn't it be fun to be the recruiter that is told, okay, your boss tells you, go out and hire for this position, okay? I'm giving you a list of requirements. Go find me a person that has this, vet them, and then give me your top 3 candidates. I want to talk to them, right? That's your job. So you go out and do this. You present them with 3 candidates. You line up the interviews. You arrange all the meetings. You figure out the schedules. And then you're told, oh, I'm sorry, this position has been put on hold. There's a feeling of job satisfaction right there. You feel like you're really doing lots of good in that job. It's like being ordered to dig a hole and fill it back in, right? You know, it's like on the one hand, if you're a worker, you say, hey, you're the boss. I'll do whatever the hell you tell me to if there's a steady paycheck in it. You know, you guys can run this company right into the ground if you want. I don't care. As long as you pay me my salary, I don't care. Or pay me my wage. But when it comes to a feeling that you're actually doing some good, that's completely gone. So that does happen. It does happen. It's coincidental and it's a sign of a bad company, but it does happen. But most of the time, it's an excuse. Typical recruiters will not want to be honest with you, especially if they're delivering bad news. There are valid reasons for that. However, it's overdone, and sometimes they just need to be a bit more honest. It's about having integrity. If someone asks you a question, they're right in front of you. Don't lie through your teeth right to their face. And don't lie through your face right to their teeth. That too. Let's get into the chat and see what you guys are saying here. Someone says, getting interviews with the Big Four, but main reason why they don't hire me is that I'm a second-year student. Why do they invite to the interview if their policy is bring final-year studs? Okay, well, that's not very well written, so I'm kind of guessing at what you're trying to say here, but you're a second-year student, I don't know in what, presumably accounting, or finance, or insurance, or something, and you're getting interviews, but then you're saying the reason that they're not hiring you is because their policy, they're violating their own policy by bringing you in. I mean, okay, I don't know. Listen, you could well be right. How do I know? I don't know the situation you're in, and I'm not privy to internal workings of the Big Four accounting firms if that's what you're referring to. But it could also be that maybe you don't interview very well. Okay, so you don't know. And like I said, they're not going to be honest with you about stuff like this. And they're never going to give you the reasons for how they make their decisions. That's the last thing they will ever do, is give you their reasoning for why they selected you or didn't select you, because that allows them to be gamed. It allows them to be hacked. If they say, oh, I always hire the candidate that does this, it's like once that gets out, it's ineffective, right? So, okay, so you could well be right. It could also be that there's an issue with your interviews. Now, in order to verify that, if that's the direction you want to go, do mock interviews, do practice interviews with friends and family or anyone else, okay? For executives, private HR firms will offer the service. They'll do practice job interviews with you, and then they will give you feedback, and they'll say like, well, this is what we thought. And we think that, you come across too aggressive when you do this. You're not making a great impression, in our opinion, when you say this. When we asked you this question and you said that was a real big red flag from our perspective, because it signals possibly this, or this. Okay, now all of those are bad. Now, if that's not the case, maybe phrase and answer differently when you get asked that type of question. Something like this. They can give you that kind of feedback. Okay, so something to consider. Okay, usually companies don't violate their own policy. Sometimes they do. There's a lot of idiotic organizations out there, especially large organizations that do stupid things. They have economies of scale, and that allows them to be very efficient. The problem is that allows them then to get away with all kinds of stupid things that would normally harm them, because they have this efficiency advantage, right? And so you do get companies violating their own policy, but I wouldn't just jump to that. So hopefully that helps. Teresa M. I'll take another couple of questions and then I gotta get rolling. But Teresa M. says, maybe you've touched on this, but having trouble passing the ATS system with my resume. So that's applicant tracking software system. I know there are services that fashion your resume to remedy that, but they are very expensive. Any advice? Yes, listen, my honest advice, Teresa, is if they put your resume through applicant tracking software, stop applying. It's crap. It's a crap job at a crap company, okay? There are so many other employers out there that don't do that actually treat you like a human being, okay? Apply for those. And if you don't know where those are, most of them are accessible through networking, okay? First of all, there's a lot of posted jobs that you could apply for that don't put your resume through applicant tracking software because they're not getting 1,000 applicants per job, okay? Look at smaller companies, look at more, things that aren't promoted far and wide. They're not on Indeed, stuff like that. Okay. So there's a lot of those to begin with. Now, beyond those, the real gold mine is what some people refer to as the hidden job market. I've learned not to use that term because apparently that's some kind of bad term that people think is some kind of scam. It's not. Most jobs that are out there are not posted. That's what the hidden job market is referring to. Jobs that are there but are not posted. The reason they are not posted is because they're very easy to fill. You don't have to pay for an internal or external HR person to, post your job like far and wide in the public eye. You don't have to do that because anyone who hears of this job almost is wanting to put themselves forward for it. Okay? Either it's a job at a good company, or it's working for a great boss, or it's doing for the amount of work you do or the type of work you do, you get paid very well. You usually have an overabundance of people applying for it. So why would you pay and say, I need this posted publicly, I need 1,000 applicants for this before I can really make a choice? That's stupid. Okay, so listen, applicant tracking software, it's a continually evolving game of cat and mouse, okay? I don't keep on top of that stuff myself because to me it's irrelevant. It's not the jobs that are behind ATS systems are not great jobs. They're usually entry-level jobs. They're jobs where they care about you so little, they don't even want to read your resume. They want to just have a machine take care of it. Okay? That's how important you are to them. They don't even have the time to read your resume. Okay? What you want to do is apply for a job where they care about who they get. And the person who's going to be your boss wants some input. They want to see who you are. And they say, okay, do I like this person? Is this a good background? That kind of thing. That's what you want. Okay? So that would be my take on it. I mean, others use different approaches, but if you're asking for my opinion based on my experience, that's what I have to say. Okay? If you want to play the ATS game, unfortunately, I'm not down with the latest sort of tactics on that. I sort of jumped out of that or lost all interest on that when people were recommending that what you do is you take the entire job posting and you attach that in text form to the end of your resume, as like an extremely tiny font with a font color of white or clear. So it doesn't show up, but it's there. And all the keywords that they were looking for are actually in your resume, technically. All those stupid little tricks like that. That's where I kind of jumped out of that. It's like, no, this is not worth my time. By the way, you can't do that anymore because they've come up with obvious countermeasures for that. So it's continually evolving. So that's what I have to say, Teresa. I don't know if that was the answer you're looking for, but hopefully it's somewhat useful. Daipen again says, is it appropriate to ask the interviewer by when or how I would know if I got the job or not during the interview? During the interview? You're going to ask them during the interview? It's, they say, do you have any questions for us? And you say, so, am I hired yet? Look, at the end of a job interview, usually they're going to allow you to ask them a couple of questions, okay? That's the standard format of these things. Okay, and the best way to phrase it is just to say at the very end, when you're shaking people's hand or whatever you're doing before you leave the room, before the end of the interaction, is you say, so where do we go from here? Like, what's the next step? Will I be hearing from you? Will you be contacting me? Should I follow up are you going to take 6 months to make a decision? It's sort of a way to get all of that. You just say, so where do we go from here? And then let them answer. And they'll usually say something like, well, we'll be letting you know one way or another within 2 weeks, something like that. Or they'll say, well, it's going to take us another 2 months to go through all the other interviews we have lined up. So at least you have an idea of the time frame and stuff like that. There's absolutely nothing inappropriate about saying that. So that's how I would respond to that. And finally, Gabriel says, hope everyone is doing well. It's been a while since I was in this channel. LOL. Well, LOL back. Yes, it's hilarious. You're here. I'm here. The whole thing is hilarious. I got that too. No, seriously, thanks to everybody who's here. There's 25 of you guys here. You guys are awesome. That's the end of this stream for Poll Review. I will be back in like 20 minutes with my general Q&A, which I really enjoy doing, actually. So join me for that if you're interested. Other than that, I will see you next week for another episode of Poll Review. Take care.